version of me. It's great to
Yeah.
meet you. Where are you located?
I live in Haymarket, Virginia.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Is that up by DC or is it no?
It is. It is
Okay.
not far from Washington, D.C. Northern Virginia is has a very independent identity. And
Okay.
so when I moved here, I thought, oh, D.C. area. But really they prefer Northern Virginia.
Okay. I gotcha. Well, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm in the center of the country. So,
Yes,
yeah.
hey,
Yeah,
Kansas City.
absolutely.
Go
Yeah.
Chiefs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's still weird to have a dynasty, but it's fun for sure.
It's a burden, right? I get
Right,
it.
it is a burden to have. Well, it's great to meet you. I'm looking forward to getting into your life of telling stories and being a writer. So before we do that, I want to know 4 years ago, we were trying to figure out this pandemic. How long is it going to last? How are we going to get out of it? How did you survive that time period? And how did it change you?
Um, it was tough for me as a writer. Let me start there. Part of my inspiration, 90% of my inspiration comes from travel and just experiencing places. That's where I find my characters. My husband and I do quite a bit of, we travel out west. We like to explore new places and we go to a lot of national parks. So we were taking 2 trips a year. And when the pandemic rolled around and things got really tight, we weren't. And I struggled as a writer. I was thinking, wow, this is great. I have my undivided attention. I'm going to put this directly into my work. And I really suffered. I floundered. I wasn't able to come up with my storylines. Everything seemed flat. So for me, it was tough. Um, I came through it. I wrote book 3 in my series during that period, but it took a really long time. And I kept second guessing it because I wasn't sure that it had the life that the first 2 books had. I think it does. I think it finally came together. I work with some great beta readers and some good editors, um, and I think that it's on track. But I will say that that period of my writing career was really tough.
So if I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at Career Day right now, and they wanted to know what you've done over your career and what you're doing now, how would you answer them?
I would say I write stories and let's write one together because I was a teacher in elementary school for years. And so that audience is really my perfect audience. I
Yeah.
spent most of my time in 6th grade, which I loved, but I was a special ed teacher. And so they bounced us between usually 2 grades per teacher. So I was in 6th grade and another grade. And 3rd grade was probably my next favorite grade to be in.
Interesting. Yeah, my wife's, well, she was a fifth grade teacher. Now she's an English teacher in high school. And my son's on the spectrum. He's 19. So I know those worlds pretty well. So I get it for sure. Um, so what did you want to be when you were in the third grade? What was your dream?
A writer.
Okay. So you're doing it. You're living
I
it.
did. But it took me a long time to be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did. I wanted to do it because I always fancied myself a good storyteller. And I was surrounded by great storytellers growing up. So I think that they influenced me. But I was also not afraid of the English language. And
Yeah.
so I could figure out where to put the comma and I was great at diagramming the sentences, and those are things that not everybody feels real comfortable with, which I get because for me in math, it's that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And so I get it when people don't want to write, don't want to put a sentence down. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
But when I found out that I was okay at it, I pursued it. And when I got to NC State, I decided, hey, this is it. This is me. I'm going to write a book. And I majored in language arts, writing and editing for that purpose. And so 30 years later, I actually sat down to write the first book, and a lot happened. But I had at several other careers. I had gone through teaching. Um, I at that point was really burning out. Teaching is so hard. Special education is really even harder. And I thought I should take a sabbatical
Yeah.
from it. And that's actually when I sat down to write the book, the first one.
What was the first book that you read that fascinated you, that captivated you and made you want to read more or write one day?
I loved, and this is going to date me, I loved the Little House on the Prairie books, that whole series. I just loved Laura Ingalls, and it it made me feel like I could write a book. She was writing about her life. I have a great life. I could write about my life, and it just inspired me to think like a writer. I think
Yeah.
she was very accessible. She wasn't um so far out of my reality that I couldn't envision myself doing what she was doing. And so she probably gets credit for inspiring me her series.
So take me back to where you were born and raised. What were the foundational elements and seeds that were planted into you to want to teach and to eventually write?
Oh, great question. Okay. So I always wanted to write. I didn't realize I always wanted to teach. It was kind of tucked in the back of my mind all of my adult life. Like, I wonder if I could. And I'll tell you, I gravitated toward teaching as really a second career. Um, I think almost as a replacement for not having kids myself. I wanted to be around young people. I didn't have any children myself, and that seemed like a pretty good solution. And I gave it a shot. I had to go back to school, got my master's degree, and then I started teaching in Fairfax County. Um, and it was everything I wanted it to be. I loved being around the energy of the kids. They constantly made me laugh. They ultimately made me better than I was. And I love having those connections with people who are now in the world doing good things. Um, it really filled me up.
So who's been a hero for you, an inspiration?
Hmm. I'll tell you, my husband is a hero. I don't want that to sound like a canned answer, but
Right.
he is one of the most driven and hardworking people I've ever met. And I love that about him. He is enabling me to do what I love doing, which is writing. And you probably know it is super hard to make a living at it. Um, the statistic I hear, and I continue to repeat this, so I hope I'm remembering it correctly. Otherwise, I'm just spreading bad information, is that 20,000 books come out every month. That is a lot of traffic,
Yeah.
whether you're self-publishing or whether you have a traditional publisher or a hybrid. That is a lot of competition. And so to distinguish yourself, it's really tough. Um, so when I look at what he's doing to allow me to do what I'm doing, he's definitely one of my heroes for sure.
So if you could meet any writer that's alive today, and we could even open it up to the ghosts and spend some time with them, get into how they do what they do, who would it be?
Oh gosh. I should have prepped for that question because I have a few. Maeve Binchy is, I call her my comfort food of literature. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but
Uh-huh.
she's Irish, she's passed, and she wrote great stories that were really character driven. And I love the fact that she could take somebody, and by the end of that story, you really knew that person, maybe like it was your neighbor,
Yeah.
could have been your best friend. And I try to do that in my stories also. I think Barbara Kingsolver tells a great story. Um, this is gonna, I can never answer this question. I can never even address this topic without speaking about somebody who's really special to me, Janet Ivanovich.
Yeah.
Janet actually endorsed my series.
Wow.
And it's a fun story because when you get to meet somebody that you really respect, you have all these emotions. So
Oh, yeah.
do I have time to take you through this
Oh,
little
please do.
this
Absolutely.
little vignette?
Yeah.
So I had been communicating with Janet via email for a period of time, more her assistant than herself. But we had come to the permission part about, yes, you can, here's an endorsement for your back cover. And I was super excited about that, but we'd never met. And so when she had a book signing up in New Jersey, which suits her series, the Stephanie Plum series
Yeah.
unfolds up in New Jersey. I'm in Haymarket. I said to a neighbor, let's run up there. This is my chance to meet Janet. And I had with me a copy of my first book because I was kind of afraid she was not going to remember that any of this transpired. So she packs the house, I'll tell you, and her fans are very devoted. She had food trucks. It was a party. And we got there, we were waiting in line forever. And you know how you do, you get like you're in line with people and you start telling your life story and you hear their life story and you get to know these people. So through the course of this, I had created this little group of friends around me as we waited in line, and it got to me my turn to go up to get the book signed, and I just stood there frozen, and I started to cry. I just the emotions came at me, and I
Yep.
just bawled.
Yeah.
And Janet, who is one of the most gracious people I've met, just said, "Come here, sit down with me." And she sat me down behind her signing table and took probably 15 minutes with me and just settled me down. And we talked about my character and her character and how one of the neat things about it is my character loves Stephanie Plum, her
Yeah.
character. And so that's in my stories. And so for her to give me that grace and let me think that my story is worthy of her character is really special. And then to meet her in person was pretty fabulous. So that goes back to your question, who inspires me? She's definitely at the top of the list.
So it's okay to meet your heroes.
Yeah, it's okay to meet your
There
heroes.
you go. That's a great story. So, what is it that gets you up every day to create these stories and to live your life the way you do? What is the motivator?
Mm. The motivator for me to get up every day, my husband and I are on a journey, on a health journey, and it started a couple years ago. We wanted to lose some weight, and all of things like get start leading a healthier lifestyle. So there's a lot of education that goes into that, and there's a lot of planning and restructuring and rewiring what you're used to doing for so many years. And so we've been on this journey together for about 2 or 3 years. He's lost almost 80 pounds, changed some A1C numbers, like all the good stuff, all the stuff that you want. And so really the start of our day is we take a walk in the morning, and it's about a 2-mile walk, and that kind of just really sets the tone. So when I throw the covers off, the first thing is I'm going to do something healthy for myself. That is a hard commitment, and it
Yeah.
it would have been maybe impossible when I was teaching, just to fit those kinds of things in, especially if you're also managing a family, which I'm really not. I'm managing, the two of us, and I do the things in the kitchen, and we're kind of 1950s in that way, which I think is fine. But if I had kids and I was running those kids all around, I would certainly, it would be harder to make the time to do that.
Yeah.
But I realize that it's super important to put your health first. So living a healthy life going forward is one of the things that we think about every day.
So, speaking of youth, if you have a dream tonight and you run into like the 18-year-old version of you, you can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've led, the wisdom you've gained over the time. What advice would you impart?
I would tell her to start writing sooner.
Yeah.
And a reason is, and it's a fine line because my experience is if I had tried to write this book when I was 18, I don't think it would be as rich as it is now
Yeah.
because I did so much more observing of people and studying the human condition and learning about, what it means to have relationships and be in relationships. And so that part was important. But if you want to write, if you want to move that piece forward, you have to practice it. You just have to. I've encountered a lot of people saying, if you want to be a good writer, you have to be a great reader. And I don't necessarily agree with that. And I'm kind of proof of it. I'm a very slow reader. If you ask me how many books a year, I would say I'm lucky if I get 3 done.
Yeah.
I'm lucky if I read 3 books a year.
Me
I'm
too.
super slow. And I don't think that impacts me as a person. I love it. I love reading. But it just goes to say that you can be a good writer
Yeah.
if you're not a strong reader, if you're not a fast reader. I think what reading does is teaches you how to manipulate language
Yeah.
so that you can do that in your own stories. And that part is definitely valuable. That ongoing education of, I wonder what the language will let me do here.
Yeah.
How can I bend this sentence differently? So that part's super important. I would tell my 18-year-old self to start writing sooner, just for the
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah. You know what's been the saving grace for me has been audiobooks.
Yes. Yeah. I love audiobooks.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, I tell people all the time, you don't have to say you listen to a book. You can say I read a book. That
Yeah.
is that is a
It's valid.
legitimate reading a book. And
Absolutely.
I wish people could understand that you're not listening to the radio. You're reading a book when you're
Yeah.
doing that.
Totally. So at the end of the day, of all of the things that you've done and accomplished in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Wow. I'll be honest, I try to be a decent human being.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot there. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to be said for that. And if we all could just practice it a little bit more, we're never perfect at it. We never always do the right thing. We sometimes overreact to whatever. But at the end of the day, if I can say, yeah, I was a decent human being most of the time, I would be satisfied with that.
So let's move that step a little further here. Everyone has a perception of you. Everyone that buys your books, everyone that knows you, family, friends, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Wow, you are asking great questions.
Thanks.
Who do I think I am? Um, I want to be a great partner.
Yeah.
So I put that first. Um, I always now consider myself, and I'll say this out loud, I'm a writer, I'm an author. I couldn't always say that, so it's important to me now. And I'm a good friend.
So if we get off this call, time machine pulls up and you can go back in human history and see one event with your own eyes, where are you going to go?
In all of human history.
Yeah. Just a little bit of time.
Um, I actually would probably be so narrow as to go back in time and um, I'd see my mama again.
Yeah. Great answer.
I would, because she died right when I got out of college and she missed the whole adult part of me. And I knew her, as the kid part of me. And so
Yeah.
I'd love to see her now as an adult, just watch her as me being the adult and see what I missed.
Great answer. So if anyone wants to pick up your books, they'd like to reach out, any other good business, how can they do that?
I love it. Thank you. I have a website. It's carlavergot.com. You can find me on Facebook at Carla Vergot's Back Porch. My books are available everywhere you buy your books, including those independent bookstores. I have Ingram distributing, so any bookstore can order it in. Bookshop.org is a great place to get them, barnesandnoble.com. Yeah, anywhere you buy your books.
Cool. I love it. Carla, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your story. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you too. Thank you so
That's
much.
Take care.